Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Mild Inconvenience is out, and I've seen it twice now, so here is my opinion on it that literally nobody asked for. This is the biggest movie of the year and has been hyped up for a while now. It's been hyped up so much, in fact, that it's slightly divisive because some people feel underwhelmed. I have quite a bit to say about this movie, and I will not even attempt to do so while avoiding spoilers, so this is your one and only spoiler warning. If you have not seen this movie, I strongly suggest that you do. I want to say that up front, yes, I did like this movie, but I don't think it's perfect, and I do have some issues with it. I'm gonna start with things I did like, and then move on to things that I did not like. So first we have the direction. This is part of what makes this movie divisive, but I like this movie's style. If you like Sam Raimi, you will like this movie. His style is not for everyone, but I enjoyed his take on the MCU overall. This is a campy, almost horror movie that moves at a breakneck pace, but whether you like that or not is your opinion. Like I said, this is almost a horror movie. This is hands down the goriest MCU movie ever made. There are a lot of parents who think this movie should have been rated R, but whatever, it was fun. I personally like how dark this movie got. Then there's the score, and it's composed by Danny Elfman, so yeah, it's pretty good. I like the visuals in this movie, but I really just wanted more, and that's something I'll talk about later. This movie is well made, and it looks very good as well. One of my favorite visual sequences in this movie is Doctor Strange fighting his dark alternate self where they use sheet music in the notes as projectiles. Blocking something and sending it back as an attack creates its own sound for the scene's score, and I thought it was pretty creative. I also like Wanda Maximoff as the villain in this movie. I think that taking her from an Avenger to a full-on villain in this movie works well because she is ripe for a fall to the dark side, the Darkhold, and then maybe after a solo movie get redeemed. The woman has known nothing but trauma. She lost her family and was experimented on and tortured. She was manipulated into killing innocent people for a destructive cause. Lost her brother, grew to be an Avenger and fell in love. Had to kill the love of her life to save the world from Thanos. Had to watch the love of her life be resurrected and then killed again by Thanos. Was dusted for 5 years, came back and still lost everything. Created a false reality in her grief and brought back the love of her life and created a family, and had to give it all up again to right her wrongs. If you don't think it makes sense that Wanda Maximoff is now a villain, I don't know what to tell you. To me, that progression in her character feels natural. Now I'm gonna move on to the issues that I have with this movie, because there are several. Number 1, America Chavez. I'm choosing my words carefully here because the actress is like 16 years old and already getting hate online. I'm not here to pile on and sink low to trash her. I actually want to do the opposite. My main issue with America Chavez is that I just don't think she was written very well. She came across more as a plot device and had no character other than the fact that she lost her mothers when she was young and is now being chased by demons for her power. What was she doing in that time between losing her mothers and being chased? What actual interest does she have? There's a lot going on in this movie, and I think it sacrifices the chance of exploring these characters more to pump in more visual effects sequences and just advance the story along. For what she's given, she's doing a fine performance. I just wish we got to know her more. My dissatisfaction with America Chavez stems from feeling underwhelmed, and so I hope that she appears in new property soon. Number 2, this movie adds a few errors to the continuity, or just has plot holes as a result of not explaining stuff. At the end of the movie, Wanda destroys the throne at Wundagore Mountain to destroy all that is left of the Darkhold. But as we learned earlier in the movie from Master Mordo and Dark Strange, a Darkhold exists in all other universes. For some reason, when Wanda destroys the throne, Doctor Strange just makes a remark about, oh, she must have destroyed the Darkhold in every universe, huh? How do you know that? It's literally never explained how her destroying Wundagore Mountain in her universe could destroy the physical copy of every Darkhold in every universe. Then we have one that I think some people may have overlooked, but when Doctor Strange is locked up in the research facility, a multiversal scientist variant of Christine tells him that while their universe is designated 838, they have designated Steven's universe, which is the MCU, as 616. This is a straight-on direct nod to the comics. However, it's not the first time an MCU movie has addressed that universe being 616. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Quentin Beck describes how he is from the universe 833 and Peter's from 616. Now that's a cool reference to the comics, but later in the movie, you find out Quentin Beck is a con man. He's a fucking liar. He's not from the multiverse. He made that up. So yeah, they made a cool nod to the comics, but then they did it again when the multiverse is actually in play in the story. Also, I will nitpick, I don't buy it for a second that a universe naming other universes does not call itself one. When I rewatched Doctor Strange, I had to look out for this one because I wasn't certain if it's a plot hole, but now I am confident in saying that at no point is it ever explained how Wanda knows where Strange and America are being held. Earlier in the film, when Wanda uses the Darkhold and at the end when Strange uses it, they essentially peer into other universes using its power to decide where they want to dreamwalk to. However, Wanda never does this. She just dreamwalks into the body of her alternate self for the second second time, possesses her body, gets up and flies to the Illuminati. It's never explained how she knows where they are. And it's also never established if this is the same mother variant of Wanda that she possessed the first time. It would be pretty convenient for the main universe Wanda is trying to reach to be the same one that Stephen and America landed with the Illuminati. And that brings me to another issue I have with this movie that isn't really a plot hole, but just an issue with the script and plot in general. America's powers are pivotal to driving the plot forward in this movie, and she uses them throughout. She can't control them though, and only opens portals when she's really scared. In the final act, Strange motivates her and helps her control her powers to beat Wanda by just saying, hey, you can control them. Every time you used your powers in this movie, you brought us exactly where we needed to be in order for the plot to happen. And by this point, I don't know if I dislike this writing or if I have to appreciate it for being somewhat self-aware. And I cannot get over this, but this movie drops a bombshell in the first act by saying, hey, you know how like you dream when you're asleep? Well, those dreams are actually windows into alternate realities existing simultaneously. This is brought up in the first act, quickly made fun of, and then never mentioned again until it's referenced at the end. So that is what I did not like about this movie. And you probably noticed by now that I really did not talk at all about the biggest part of this movie that people were hyping up to literally no end. And that, of course, is the Illuminati. There are people rejoicing, celebrating, crying tears of joy for the Illuminati. And there are those who dismiss it, say it's a disgrace, a disappointment, or a downright insult to them personally as a fan. These people are overreacting. What this movie had to offer with the Illuminati is completely enough for what the story was trying to do. I think a lot of people were expecting an in-game level team-up of multiversal Marvel characters, but that's just not what we got. People have been hyping up this movie so much more following No Way Home because the introduction of the multiverse means we can see variants of legacy Marvel characters. For Christ's sakes, this movie has Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier in it and John Krasinski as Reed Richards, people. That's a pretty big deal. Granted, they don't have much screen time and die quickly, but so much is happening in this movie that it works for what it is. The whole point is you think, oh, our characters are safe, they're with the Illuminati, but then Wanda comes in like a final boss and destroys everybody. One person who really nobody is talking about is Anson Mount as Black Bolt, who is reprising his role after playing the character in the 2017 show Inhumans. If you had no idea who he was because you didn't watch the show, don't worry, nobody really did. So yeah, Wanda just fucking obliterates the Illuminati. They are nothing at all like they are in the comics. And I think some people need to remember that this is one Illuminati in one universe inside of an infinite multiverse. If they wanted to revisit the Illuminati elsewhere, they could do it completely differently. In this movie, they're really arrogant, but that arrogance arises from their experience with Doctor Strange and the multiverse. In this universe, it doesn't really seem like Wanda's powers have evolved much beyond Infinity War. I think it makes total sense they would be arrogant and downplay the threat that Wanda poses because this gives Wanda a chance to put to rest any arguments left about who the most powerful Avenger is. Now, would Tom Cruise as Iron Man, Deadpool, Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider, and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine be really cool to see? Yeah, but I don't know where that would fit in this movie. But I will say that for a movie called Multiverse of Madness, there's not a whole lot of multiverse madness. There's one sequence where Stephen and America fall through like a dozen or so realities. And finally, my last critique of this movie that honestly extends beyond this movie. In general, I'm just frustrated by the lack of connective tissue. There are two big things in the MCU right now that I believe are ripe for great storytelling potential, but that I feel are being severely underused right now. The first is the multiverse, and the second is the snap. We've had 3 projects now that focus on or involve the multiverse, and none of them really have any connective tissue. The only connection is between No Way Home and this movie because Strange briefly mentions how he has experience from what happened in No Way Home. Loki is my favorite MCU Disney Plus show, though Moon Knight does come close. And I don't know, man, I just want more. I know Kevin Feige says, well, the events of this movie were only allowed to happen because of what happened in Loki. But dude, you got the writer from Loki to write this movie and they never crossed paths with Sylvie or Loki or Mobius? I guess we gotta wait till season 2. But on the other hand, the snap and the undoing of the snap is one of, if not the biggest event in the recent history for the MCU. Thanos wiping out half of all life with the snap of his finger is an event that has affected literally every single person in the MCU. Someone either vanished for 5 years and came back to chaos, or they lost loved ones or simply died during the chaos. We see this briefly explored in Hawkeye with Yelena, and it's even briefly mentioned in this movie, but not as much as I had hoped for. The Eternals movie also had a giant celestial head and fingers appear out of the ocean, and literally nobody has mentioned it. There's just not much connective tissue between these new movies. Overall, I do like this movie. I think some people expected far too much from it, and you can just blame that on comic outlets and self-proclaimed inside sources for saying that Deadpool, Ghost Rider, Magneto, Tobey's Spider-Man, and Tom Cruise's Iron Man would appear in this movie. This movie is a good, campy, horror-adjacent Sam Raimi movie that will entertain you if you just turn your brain off a little. So to wrap this one up, I will give Dr. Madness and the Multiverse of Strange a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please check out my previous videos where I cover content outside of the MCU. I'm in a weird phase right now as I finish up college, but I have so many new videos in the works for you all and I can't wait to share it with you guys. I'm Rem Nakor, I will see you all in the next one.